There is no master plan for Keisha. There's nothing in place. And if there is, it hasn't been presented to the public, nor has anyone talked about it. Mr. Slidell was quoted saying that Hamner School is falling apart and we can't use Keisha. Those, I know they're not exact words. There are those who want to keep Keisha farmland. Ms. Rhines, Keisha is great, but it's farmland that people want to protect. I don't know who the people are, and I'd like to ask that. And 2 town council meetings ago, I asked the town manager, are we in the farming business? And he shook his head no. The town is not going to use that for farmland. I'm a resident of Old Weathersfield. I have the 165-page Old Weathersfield master plan. Any of you are more than welcome to borrow it. You can find it online. The impact, building a school in the middle of that park that I grew up in since I was 1 year old. My dad played baseball there. My kids grew up there. I stood there the other day and looked around and said, I don't understand how and why we'd want to do that. And the impact on historic, everything in that area. Weathersfield is the largest historic district in the state. We are the 3rd most cultural. The State Historic Preservation Office will get involved with this. They will do an archaeological survey. It will hold this up. And if that doesn't hold it up and the project got started, if it did pass all these other bumps, they're going to find something. I have pictures. There was houses on that land. People lived there in the 1800s, probably earlier. I'm asking you to reconsider this because I too want to see our schools taken care of. We need to have that. We need to be a community. I'm not Republican or Democrat. It's not me against any of you. Shouldn't be anybody against anybody, but Stillman's not a good idea. And I don't know how or where or when or why it became that statement that this is the best for the town. And I talked to somebody from Preservation Connecticut. There's a lot of opinions out there, and I just really want to encourage you. Keisha's open. Go to Keisha and don't destroy our park. It's history. And maybe for some people that haven't lived here long, it's not as much, but it will be one day for you. Bring your kids down there or just walk by yourselves and enjoy the space that it is. We don't want a city there, and we don't want to change it. And it's not going to work. Thank you.
Thank you, Christine. I think the gentleman in the back.
Hello. My name is Steve Caprio. I live at 311 Garden Street, the corner of Garden and Hubbard, directly across from Sanders Park and Stillman Field. I'd first like to thank the committee for their work thus far and the opportunity to speak tonight. I stand here tonight not only as a resident and direct abutter with 2 young children ages 3 and 1, but also an experienced professional in landscape architecture, construction, real estate development, and entitlements. I have a degree in landscape architecture with an emphasis on community development, a minor in horticulture, and a master's in real estate development. I've spent 8 years actively running construction projects for a national luxury home builder, as well as a national developer of Hilton, Hyatt, and Marriott branded hotels. For the last 3 years, I've been actively developing multifamily apartment communities in Connecticut. All these developments have been public-private partnerships with Connecticut, all these with Connecticut state agencies, which I've taken from entitlement through construction. I wanted to give this background only to establish my credibility in discussing this important topic. I apologize in advance for the length of my comments, but I assure you that I've tried to keep my remarks both factual and relevant to the matter at hand. Above all else, this issue is about the future of our schools and the importance of providing quality education to our children in the best environment possible. This issue should transcend political lines and should be based solely on the following criteria: the likelihood of success of the project, the speed at which successful execution can be reached, the impact on existing town assets, the impact on local residents. With these criteria in mind, I'd like to discuss TKSP and down construction's analysis of possible swing school sites where crucial information was left out and other existing determinations were unjustly weighted. The analysis of swing school sites has left out the critical element of approvals and the likelihood that a site can not only successfully receive site plan approval, but the time associated with receiving these approvals. This is by far the most important factor and should immediately rule out Stillman Field site as an option for a swing school. Relating to points 1 and 2, Stillman Field has the least likelihood of success in the approvals process and has the most risk exposure for an appeal to be taken, creating an extended approval period. Stillman Field is part of historic Old Weathersfield, the largest historic district in the state of Connecticut, and a district that has been listed on the National Register of Historic Places since 1970. The successful application to add Old Weathersfield to the National Register of Historic Places in 1970 not only included the historic structures in town, but also existing parks, open space, urban fabric, and the road network of the historic district. As evidenced by the aerial imagery that I'll leave with the committee, the baseball field has been in existence in the same location since at least 1934, likely beforehand, and the parcel itself has been left unchanged since the 1700s. In order to receive the authority to replace the open space and baseball field, Stillman Field with a new school funded partially by state dollars, the town will need to submit the site and project plans to SHPO, the State Historic Preservation Office. SHPO will then determine if the plan will cause the unreasonable destruction of historic property, i.e. the loss of open space and fields that have been in existence for use for over 100 years. I cannot stand here today and tell you which way SHPO will rule, but when conducting a risk analysis and feasibility study, this issue should sit at the top of the list and should immediately eliminate Stillman Field from contention. Stillman Field is the only property under discussion that is part of the National Historic Registry. Not only is there very real risk that SHPO could determine the project poses an adverse effect and should not move forward, but every individual in town has standing to appeal the decision to move forward with destruction of these fields under the Connecticut Environmental Protection Act as a party intervening to protect historic properties' unreasonable destruction. Besides the risk associated with SHPO, if an appeal is taken, it will take a minimum of a year to make its way through court and the Court of Land Use Appeals. This is a fact, not an estimate. Along those same lines, the conceptual plan as currently drawn has made use of space on the Standish Park parcel for a road and parking. The Standish Park parcel was deeded to the town as a park, not as educational land, and the site plan cannot contemplate using part of this parcel in the design of the school and drive aisle. Another factor in the approvals process that affects Stillman Field and no other parcel up for consideration is the requirement to go through the Historic District Commission. The Historic District Commission process will not only add time, but cost to the project. The exterior skin, windows, and height of the building are all areas of design that sit in this commission's purview and will have a negative impact on construction pricing. There will be no ability to value engineer to a more cost-effective skin or window selection, and this has the potential to add considerable cost to the project. With relation to building height, the new structure needs to fit in with the character and scale of the surrounding area and existing structures. A two-story building has the potential to be shot down on review, and a one-story building may not be feasible on this small site. Again, these are factors that should be included in the analysis and should eliminate Stillman from consideration. Point 3, the impact on existing town assets. Stillman Field and Standish Park are frequented and used by residents of Weathersfield throughout the year, from families and groups
Stephen, you're
casually.
at 5 minutes. I ask you to summarize, please.
I'd like to finish if that's okay.
5 minutes per public comment. If you could summarize your points at the end, that'd be great.
I'd really like to, this is important, and I think everybody should hear this because these are things that have not been brought up by the council. And the fact that an architect is sitting here and has not brought up these important points, I'd like to bring them up now.
Sir, I understand, but to be fair to everybody else who also probably has public comment in the rest of the agenda, I have to commit to 5 minutes per speaker, please.
It's appropriate, I'd like to finish.
I have to stick to 5 minutes. That is the rules. We've been doing that in all the committees, all councils, Board of Eds. I'm sorry, 5 minutes.
Anybody would like to
But
finish from
he's
this paragraph
actually,
down?
you're allowed to come back after everybody else has
That's
spoken if
correct.
you would like
That
to
is
come back
correct.
and finish.
Anybody else for public comment? Anyone else for public comment? Ma'am?
Good evening. My name is Janice Olson. I live at 99 Hartford Avenue. I'm a fairly new resident of Weathersfield. I love it here, love the town, love the people, and thank you all for your service. I'm not as well prepared as the previous speaker, but some things have occurred to me about this project. One is, how did we get here that all of these schools have to be repaired at the same time. I haven't, as I said, I haven't lived here that long, so I don't know the history. It's just a question for consideration. And since January 1st, the world has been turned upside down. Markets and people don't like uncertainty, economic uncertainty, political uncertainty, and this is what we're facing right now. And I really believe that in these uncertain times, a project of this size and scope and scale is going to have a very hard time passing. I do believe the schools need to be fixed. We want our children to have safe, up-to-date technology for their learning environment. But I do think there might be other options to consider. There's temporary classrooms, do one project at a time, break it down into digestible pieces. You know, you're going to ask people to, assessments have just gone up, you're going to ask for more money for this project. I believe you're going to have a hard time getting it passed. So thank you.
Thank you, Janice. Anybody else for public comment? Yes.
Hi, Sue Derwin, 315 Garden Street. I grew up in the house where I currently reside. I went to Hamner School, and my kids go to Hamner School now. I do know that all the schools do need to be fixed, but I don't feel that the swing school should be at Stillman. The baseball field that is there is used from the time it starts getting warm with games during the week and the weekends. And if there is no games going on, then there are kids with their friends or parents that are practicing or even playing kickball. That field is used until it is too cold to be out there. The basketball court that is over there too is always jam-packed constantly, again, until it's too cold. Garden Street is a cut-through street for a lot of people, and I can tell you that those people do not go slow. People speed past the school, even past Mikey's place. Half the time those people are speeding or not even paying attention because they're either on their phones or messing with the radio. And you can tell because their heads are down. You can only see the tops of their heads. My son walks to school, to and from school by himself. One day he was getting ready to cross, coming home, he was crossing at the new crosswalk at Hubbard. There was a car that had stopped to let him go, and thank God he was paying attention because a car came speeding down Garden Street and went right around the other car that was stopped. If he was walking, he would have gotten hit. You want to add a swing school and have two schools going at the same time, you're going to add more traffic to that area and lots of kids running around all over the place. Even if there is staggering start and dismissal times, it'll still be really crazy over there. In my eyes, I personally think that Stillman Park and Standish Park are a huge part of the old Wethersfield Historic District. By placing a two-story building there, it would ruin the look and feel of it. There is more than enough room, I believe, at the farm. Thank you.
Thank you, Sue. Any other public comment?
Hello, my name is Johnny Moore Dotson. I live at 7 Springdale Road. I have a daughter who goes to High Crest. I did not prepare remarks because I honestly didn't plan on speaking, so I'm not going to be as polished as I normally would be. But as my mom, who was a community advocate, told me, is that when you feel the need to speak up for something, you need to speak up, no matter what. And so the first thing I would like to say is thank you to the building committee, thank you to TSKP, and thank you to Downs Construction for all the work you all have put in so far to get to this point. All the studies you've done, all the information you've put together, the numbers you've run. And I have to say that because we have people out here trying to act like y'all don't know how to do your jobs, which is just ridiculous. You did not get this far because you just willy-nilly chose a spot. So you put the options out there, you put the comparisons, you even ranked them by green, yellow, red. It was easy to read, easy to understand. And for that, I appreciate and I thank you for putting in that work. The second thing I would like to point out is, no, I don't live in Old Weathersfield. Didn't grow up even in Connecticut. I'm from St. Louis, Missouri. Okay, completely different. I do understand the ties that people have to things being historic, having meaning, having the nostalgia, but also being from St. Louis, I recognize what happens when you don't change with the times. Our schools for a time in St. Louis went unaccredited for the same reasons we're facing now in Weathersfield, because those buildings were falling apart, needed to be redone, needed to be rebuilt. And does anybody know what happens when your schools go uncredited? Anybody? I mean, y'all can look up stuff about the Historic District Commission, look up stuff about the Connecticut Historic District. Is this Q&A? No.
Yeah, John,
I'm just saying, this
just
information,
address us
this
as
is
a committee,
information, and you're right, I'm sorry, I'm getting worked up and I need to be talking to y'all, I'm sorry. But there were a lot of things that's been said that was clearly directed at the rest of the town who want to see this go forward, and other people who don't want to see it go forward because of where the swing site is proposed to go, the best option. And I'd like to point out that I don't appreciate that those people have no problems making everybody else inconvenienced just because you don't want it in your backyard. Just say it what it is. And it makes me not feel like I am a part of Weathersfield. I've been here 8 years. My daughter goes to Highcrest. We go to Old Weathersfield. We hang out in the parks. There's plenty of open space. Building a swing school on the Stillman site would not take away that much open space. And as a matter of fact, it would be a net gain, as I understand it, as you all presented it. So I'm just speaking from where I'm feeling, which is why I'm getting worked up, because when I normally prepare a statement, I'm not this riled up. But I just had to get up and say something. So thank you.
I'm Carrie Hill, 117 Randy Lane. Like Johnny, I was not prepared to speak, but I'm going to take not myself. I grew up here. I went to Highcrest. My first job was at Highcrest, and now my 3 children go there. I'm on the wall with everybody else who graduated from Highcrest. My soon-to-be 6th grader is going to be on the wall there. I cannot sit here and keep kicking the can down the road anymore. I am tired of my children coming home and saying they're walking around buckets. I am tired of learning that a pipe burst in our nurses' room was moved and children couldn't go to the nurse because pipes are bursting. I understand the importance of the history of this town. I've lived here, I've breathed it, I've watched and fought for lots of it. But if we don't do something to our schools soon, our children are going to grow up thinking that's what you do. You go to a school where it's raining in your classroom. Their experiences are you go into a classroom and you have to leave because it's raining, or a pipe burst, or this happened or that happened. Hamner is a lovely school, I'm sure. I don't have children. I have subbed in the building. I was there when 1st graders had to walk, I don't even know how many feet away just to go to a bathroom because their plumbing was not working. If we don't do something soon, our children are going to think this is what buildings are like, and that makes me sad. We all talk about the history and the baseball field, and that's great, but we have children who are 6, 5 years old thinking pipes burst and we just have to deal with it and go apart. You wouldn't live in your houses like that. You would deal with a portalet being in front of your house so that you could repair this and that. We need to do something. So thank you for what you're trying to do for us and getting our schools going, and I really hope we stop looking at the negatives and realizing if we don't do something for our children who can't stand up here and speak, that our town is just not going to be as wonderful as we think it is, because these schools are just not doing anything for them. Thank you.
Thank you, Carrie. Anyone else? Yes, sir. And that's
Hi, Brian Amoroso, 95 Church Street. I've been to several town council meetings. I've been to building committee meetings. I've not heard one person say that they're against the project. I've heard a lot of people say they're against the project because of where it's being built. I feel the same way. I want the project to go forward. I want the schools to be repaired. You've got one location where the gentleman over there on the right said it could easily be done. There's 20 to 25 acres there. But instead, for some reason, some people are insisting on putting it in a 5-acre area that's going to completely disrupt the area. I've asked the question, and I still don't have an answer. Why not Keisha? Why? Somebody answer it.
Sally.
Good evening. My name is Sally Keating, and I live at 109 Church Street. I have lived in Old Weathersfield for almost 32 years. I am speaking in support of building the swing school on the Stillman property. In 1923, Bessie Stillman deeded the Stillman land to the town for, and I quote, "the purpose of school buildings and school grounds," end quote. There are some who are saying they don't want the school built on this parcel and to put it on the other side of town. This is NIMBY, not in my backyard, and I guess not in my notes. If we chose to build a school in Keisha Farm, how many hundreds of people would be here saying, no, it can't be Keisha Farm? We have to stop this. Recently, I heard of a resident who does not live in Old Weathersfield say, walking from the Stillman School property to Standish Park, and in how many feet or yards do you get to Cove Park? Got me to thinking about old open space in our town. Here's what I found from our website. Old Weathersfield comprises less than 16% of the town of Weathersfield. In Old Weathersfield, we have 153.8 acres of open space. The rest of Weathersfield has 377.2 acres of open space. So while Old Weathersfield comprises less than 16% of the town, we have 29% of the open space. Said another way, Old Weathersfield is less than 1/5 of the town, and we have almost 1/3 of the open space. I think we can afford to build the swing school on the Stillman property. Last week, after the Weathersfield Schools Parent Council monthly meeting, I was looking out of a second-floor window in the Board of Education building with another attendee. From that vantage point, we could see that there is plenty of room for a 2-story school and how ugly the current Hamner School building is. For the people calling it a mid-century anything, please look at TSKP and our Downs Construction websites and look at some of the traditional school buildings they have designed and or built. We could have a beautiful building that would fit in with the aesthetics of our homes and historic buildings in Old Weathersfield. And when all of the elementary schools have been renovated, we can have a good-sized park where the current Hamner now stands. By the way, the Historic Commission does allow for the demolition of buildings. I believe it's page 22 of the Historic Commission regulations that outlines the process. Last week, I spoke to a teacher at Hamner who told me that when she was interviewing for the 2006-2007 school year, she was told that Hamner would be renovated. Here we are 19 years later. Teacher is still at Hamner, and she's wonderful. So glad she's still there. No renovations. We need to get this done. Again, if we propose to put the swing school on the Keisha Farm property, how many people would be at these meetings saying not on Keisha property? We need to move forward together for our children, our teachers, our administrators, and our town. Thank you.
Thank you, Sally. Anyone else? Public comment? Yes.
Hi, Evelyn DeVoe, 35 Woodside Drive, grew up in Old Weathersfield on 89 Hartford Ave. We all want the schools redone, but if you do it on Standish, you will have a delay trying to get it approved by the historic district. And also, once building happens and you come across things, it gets stopped for months, even years sometimes. That's what happened down by the barn, the web barn and everything with the whole museum rebuild. It got stopped for a long time. We want this to go quick and we want new schools. Don't do Standish because it's gonna get stalled even longer. You have 25 plus acres of open land. Use that because you're gonna avoid all the delay and all the craziness. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Good evening. My name's Patricia Carroll, 34 Chesterfield Road. I'm a former Hanmer parent. Hanmer inside is a beautiful school. We've had thousands of children go through. They've moved on to lead productive lives. It was a wonderful place to meet other parents. I think it's a beautiful school. Does it need to be renovated? Mm-hmm. Does it need to be restored? Yes, I agree with that. Hanmer, the architecture to me represents an important period of our history that it's a physical record of baby boomers moving from urban areas to the suburbs. That's what mid-century modern is. Between 1950 and 1960, it was the largest growth in Wethersfield's history according to the U.S. Census data. So it is an important record of our history. There are 3 plans before us. I think 2 are very good because there is space for them. There's Keisha and there's Highcrest. I am not in favor of forever changing a historic green space in Old Wethersfield. History is part of our history, and preserving it is very important. So if we go with the Hanmer plan, that would be 3 schools on 6 acres, because Stillman was a school. Hanmer would stay for 10 years, and a brand new building would be put there. So 3 schools, although one's used for admin, and 6 acres. 2 active schools on 6 acres. Where do the kids at Hanmer play? The old or the new school? I was looking at the pictures online. There's a big rectangular building. There are 2 streets now that run right by it and cut it off. There's an admin building behind it, and there's a street in front of it. For me as a kid and my kids and as a teacher now, the best part of the days when you open those doors and kids can run out to recess, and they can run and run and run. Take a look at our schools now. We all have big fields around them. This new plan, where are kids going to run? Into the parking lot? Into the street? Into the admin building? Where is their green space? Our town website says that the mission of this project is for the project to provide safe and equitable educational opportunities. This Hanmer plan is not equal to the other plans. It does not give our kids the green space. It doesn't give them places to run, and we can't count on Standish Park because that's a public park. And we don't always want kids in public parks, right? We want them on school grounds. So Hanmer School deserves to be recognized and appreciated. It deserves to hold on to its heritage, its green, and the old Wethersfield community deserves to continue preserving its history, because preserving history is part of our history. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Anyone else for public comment? Yeah.
Mindy Gold, 405 Ridge Road. Emily Oster, the economist who became famous for helping people navigate parenthood with logic and data, reminds us, our lives are full of hard choices. Often, no option is perfect. Every choice carries some downside. And because no one likes choosing downsides, we sometimes hold out hope for a magical alternative, a way to avoid the hard choice altogether. But as Oster puts it, there is no secret option C. She explains, in these complicated moments, we are often waiting for a secret third option. No matter how unlikely it is, how impossible, it's hard not to imagine it. But this magical thinking, as appealing as it is, ends up getting in the way. Her advice? Accepting that no secret third option exists allows us to weigh the real choices in front of us, A and B, honestly. It doesn't make tough decisions easy, but it forces us to confront reality rather than compare difficult options to an imaginary, painless alternative. I bring this up because the architects, construction company, and building committee recommended the one plan that is now before us, but I hear a lot of magical thinking about a secret option C when it comes to our town's elementary schools. In this version, our children get the schools they deserve without mice, without ceilings that leak, without mold patched over instead of remediated, where clean air circulates through modern filtration systems, heat and cooling actually work, and security measures keep them safe. Kids can focus on the joy of childhood, the beauty of young friendships, and the excitement of learning. And also in this version, this all occurs without any interruption to traffic, without any construction vehicles sharing our roads, without any new noise in our neighborhoods, temporary classroom relocations or detours, without early morning work crews, without adjustments to school schedules or routines, without logistical challenges for parents, teachers, students, or neighbors. And not to be the bearer of bad news, but these two realities coexisting is in fact magical thinking. Here's the truth. Our schools are old, they are failing, and any vote against new schools is a vote against the health and safety of our children. So we are asked to make a choice that might be hard and inconvenient, but it must be made now, before it's too late, because there is no secret option C. And if we keep waiting for one, our children pay the price. I know we can do hard things here in Wethersfield, if not for us, for our children. Thank you.
Thank you, Mindy. Anyone else for public comment? Yes, sir.
Rick Gary, 35 Harding Street. First, I want to say thank you to the volunteers. I know this is a thankless job. And also I want to apologize because I've not been involved in the process at all, so I probably don't know everything that happened. Been in Wethersfield my whole life, and I've been through all the different referendums we've tried since the beginning of time. And my kids went to Charles Wright way back in the day when we did their school redistricting. And I remember that was going to be the end of the world. Kids would never get along with each other. They're never going to learn. It was horrible. Turned out it was fine. So when you do these, you're going to make someone mad, is my point, no matter where you do this. And having lived in New Wethersfield my whole life, I've been hearing my whole life that you can't do anything in Old Wethersfield, do whatever you want in New Wethersfield, because, you know, they don't care. But I don't know if Stillman is the best option or not. Again, I haven't been involved. My only question, and maybe I'm sure you've already looked at it, is the space right next to Highcrest. And there's a huge piece of land on the corner where the baseball field is. We own it. It's not Keisha. It's not Stillman. And look, sports parents are going to come out no matter what field you take out. But I'm sorry, I'm involved in youth sports. I always have. Sports comes second. If we lose a baseball field for a few years, I'm sorry. We'll get over it. And I think that's my point. It will all be fine, but we have to get this done. Someone's going to be mad no matter where you put it. And once you find the best option, someone's going to be mad, and in the end, the kids will be fine. And we'll all be fine. So I appreciate your work. I would like to know, I'm sure that space must have been looked at right next to Highcrest, I'm assuming. And if I don't know if any of this information is available that we can see that. I'd love to know where it is and see it. Just something I thought about. But again, you're always going to get the not in my backyard. You're always going to get everybody mad. But in the end, the kids are always fine. Everything seems to come out. You just have to get it done. Thank you.
Thank you, Rick. Anyone else for public comment? Yes, sir.
Hi, Tom Carson, 12 Avalon Place. You've all been appointed to do the heavy lifting in this project, and we're paying consultants to help us determine the best construction schedule, the most efficient cost, and with the least disruption to our kids. So I trust you all to make the right decisions for all of us, and I thank you for all the work that you're doing. We have too many people in town offering comments in person and on social media who are trying to figure out ways to say no rather than ways to say yes. Many of us may even think we're smarter than the people who are actually doing all this work. I choose to trust the experts. I live in Old Wethersfield, spent about a decade connected to Hanmer while my kids were educated there. It's a fabulous school and a fabulous community, but that building is on life support, and from what I understand, is not savable. If the experts determine it can't or shouldn't be saved, then we need to knock it down and build a school we can all be proud of. You hear some talk in the historic district, even here tonight, about Hanmer as a worthy example of mid-century modern architecture that needs to be preserved. I'm probably more of a fan of architecture than most people, but to that sentiment I say, give me a break. That building is almost exactly my age. There's nothing particularly special about it, and since we've needed a new hammer for 10 or 15 years or more, it obviously wasn't built to last. And just because a building is built in an historic district, it doesn't make it a permanent fixture. Just 5 years ago, 2 houses built in the 50s were torn down on Middletown Avenue, and it got through the Historic District Commission. Those who are attached to Stillman Field, it's just a field. The school uses it for field day. Maybe there are a few picnics during the year, and it has a baseball field. And my son played rec baseball there, and I have some nice memories of the setting, but it doesn't have dugouts, doesn't have a fence. And those things and other factors kept the high school teams from even using it in recent memory. A new regulation baseball diamond will need to be built if it's taken out of commission. Maybe that could be a part of this project. But my point is Stillman Field is just a field. That's it. It's a field that has very little activity on it when school isn't in session. I drive by or walk by it with my dog pretty much daily. It's just a field. Old Weathersfield. We have Scarecrows in Maine in October, Bikes on Main in May, Porch Fest in August, Holidays on Main in December, Art Walk in July. At Halloween, kids from all over town and even in neighboring municipalities come in Old Weathersfield to trick or treat. We have at least 4 road races during the year, in April, June, August, and October. We have the DMV there. At the Cove Park, we have youth field hockey in the fall, lacrosse in the spring, old-time baseball in the summer, glow-in-the-dark ultimate frisbee every Wednesday night when the weather is nice. We have the craft fair there. The Corn Fest was just moved there for safety reasons from Broad Street Green. And this year, for 4 days in September, we'll be hosting the Traveling Veterans Tribute Wall for 4 days. We have events at the Solomon Wells House. We have the Farmers Market every Thursday for 6 months. We have fireworks in June. We have graduation in June. And we have everyone's favorite, the Cove Carnival, for 3 days in October. My point is, everyone wants to be in Old Weathersfield. We have near constant activity and crowds. It's what we do. So I say when it comes to building a new school and hosting hundreds of students from other schools for a few years, bring it on. It's what we do, and we can handle it. Thanks.
Thank you, Tom. Anybody else for public comment? Shelley.
Good evening, Shelley Carbone, 18 Cedarwood Drive. I'm not gonna lie, this feels really weird for me to be on this side of it. I really do appreciate, I know I'm supposed to address the council, I really do appreciate everyone's opinions and perspectives. Isn't it amazing how we all have different ones? Clarity is very important to me, especially being on the council and when you're making these huge decisions that are really gonna impact the entire town. So I just want to make a few statements. I want to make sure we all have the right information. So if at any time I make a statement that you feel is not correct, I'm hoping during your meeting you will correct it. I hate incorrect statements. So I do understand at the last meeting, you voted to place that swing school on the Stillman property adjacent to Hamner School in Old Weathersfield. It's also my understanding that High Crest is the most difficult school to renovate. Not impossible, expensive, not impossible, however, not a good build, according to TSKP. The architecture and placement should have never happened due to its honeycomb structure and surrounding wetlands. It will not be an easy renovation, to say the least. Having said that, Hamner, with its linear construction, more ladder-like, I do pay attention, right, during the meetings, can be renovated like new. It can go down to the studs and will be unrecognizable on the inside and updated perfectly and still be able to stay within the HDC guidelines for the exterior. So renovated as new. So I think that would alleviate some of the fears of people thinking, well, if it's not at Stillman, we need this school, we need Hamner. Hamner will get done and be unrecognizable from the inside. My understanding also is that the consultants were very much in favor of using Keisha Farms. They were discouraged from doing so. This is not hearsay, this is not conjecture. I actually sat in meetings where I heard that happen, and it was kind of a little, I will say it was slightly upsetting to me, when I think we should be looking at all of the town's resources fairly and talk about using equity. So when I hear people say to me, trust the consultants, I do trust the consultants. I do, however, have some reservations because it wasn't the consultants that chose the swing school site. It was this committee that chose the swing school site. Two very different things. Based on recommendations, obviously. My bottom line for me is this referendum needs to pass. We need renovated schools. Our children, well, not my children, and half of your children will be done with these schools too, but the town's children need renovated schools. It's time. I really liked what the BOE chair, Bobby Granata, said about how our schools are all used up. It's true. And I think everyone can agree on that. It's time we do something. My hope is that the committee will recognize that Stillman is not the best choice for the swing school, and it's just too problematic. I sat here in a meeting and listened to the fire marshal, our own fire marshal, state that putting the swing school on Stillman would be problematic for EMS, not ideal for EMS from that standpoint. Our Park and Rec Advisory Board chose Keisha because we would be downfields, we'd be negative fields if we did that. Where Stillman, if Stillman's a swing school, if Stillman is the swing site school, say that 5 times fast, you're going to be negative fields. Where if it's on Keisha, we'll be in the positive, we'll be adding fields. And also, for those of you who don't know, there is no RFP out for Keisha. That has been put on hold until all of this is done. So nothing has gone out. There's been no more master plan that's being formulated. So nothing's happening with Keisha at the moment. I don't know why anyone would think that having an active construction zone 100 yards from a very busy, bustling elementary school wouldn't cause any issues or be disruptive. And then having 2 active schools on about 4 acres of property for about 8 years can also prove to probably be really problematic. And those of you have stated that just because some of us don't believe the swing school belongs at Stillman, that we will cause the referendum to fail. I believe the opposite, right? Talk about perspective. I believe it will fail because you have chosen Stillman as the swing school. A little bit different perspective. The neighbors don't want it there, and the HDC is inclined to follow the guidelines, which may not permit it anyway. And then for those of you who say we have to build immediately because our children's very lives are at risk in our current schools, if we build a swing school at Hamner,
Shelley,
you're
you were
essentially
at 5
saying...
minutes.
Thank you. Long story short, there's going to be kids in the old Hamner building for 6 to 8 years. So then, are they not safe? You know, let's use our heads. So I'll read the rest later. Thank you.
Thank you, Shelley. Any other public comment? Going once? Yes. Oh, we had some competition.
Fight to the death.
Paul Acella, 32 Hartford Ave. Just like everybody else says, I really appreciate all of your time and effort that you put into this volunteer work. I think this is really not about saying no, but it's about finding a path to yes. And I think the process for the selection of where the swing school is proposed, there's some shenanigans going on there, and I would personally like to get to the bottom of it. In November 19th of 2024, our very own consultants made the statement, Keisha Farm represents, looking at it from a building opportunity, a big flat site with good access on a couple of public right-of-ways. Then he went on to say that the reason they didn't choose it was because the community was unsettled with what to do with that property. The community is not unsettled. It's legally binding that that property is to be used for 3 purposes: open space, recreation, and municipal purposes. Building a new school is a municipal purpose. When pressed on why they backed away from that site, it was simply because we were unsettled. And I want to understand who objectively Who guided them that we are unsettled on that property? Objectively. And then he went on to say, as a consequential next step, Keisha would be a great opportunity. In previous meetings, it's also understood that they've articulated that it's the best value for the community to build on that property. Building on that property would also allow savings as it relates to parking, to utilize open space, electricity for putting in potentially athletic fields, and there's a whole lot of common infrastructure that could be used not only for the school, but everything else. I have requested a Freedom of Information Act for a number of topics because I unfortunately don't trust the process that we've gone through. This is not disparaging to any of you, but it feels like we're making a decision, and as you guys spoke, many of you wanted to rely on the consultants. I want to read his words again. As a consequential next step, Keisha would be a great opportunity, and previously, looking at it from a building perspective, it represents a big flat site with good access on a couple of public right-of-ways. I will also say that I have 5 kids who have gone through Hamner Elementary. And while I appreciate the despair that everybody has and that it's in the worst condition, it's the highest performing school in the entire Wethersfield School District. My oldest daughter has a 4.0 at UVM in the nursing program. My second daughter is at UConn in the data science program. I have 3 other boys in the school system who are thriving, and they all went to Hamner. And schools are about teachers, parental involvement, and of course we have to ensure that they're in a safe environment. If you walk through Hamner School, it might look old, but it is the warmest, most loving place you could possibly find in this town. And so while they absolutely, if there's mold in these schools, they should be closed down tomorrow. Then they should be closed down tomorrow. I mean, that's an obligation that this town has for our kids. So I will, that's all I will say tonight. There are some shenanigans going on here. Keisha Farm is the right place to build this farm objectively, to build the schools objectively. And anybody who thinks otherwise is absolutely out of their mind.
Thank you. I think we had, yep.
Hi, I'm Nicole Hart, 13 Harmon Court. I wasn't prepared to speak tonight, but why not? I have 3 children that went to Hamner, and I was also the PTO president of Hamner School for quite a few years. What I did not hear anyone say is anything about the safety around that area. Now, lived in Old Wethersfield for 23 years. Always thought it was odd that Hamner was just kind of right in the middle of everything. As PTO president, we had a lot of events and stuff, and I would be at school during the school day, and I can't tell you how many times the principal or someone had to go out and tell someone from the general public to please get off school property, gym class is coming out, recess is coming out, and there was no boundary, I guess, for the general public. And that concerns me when you want to put a swing school in the middle of Stillman area. There's no boundaries. I don't know how boundaries would be put in when it's adjacent to a park, Standish Park, with Mikey's Place, a lot of general population people. I don't know if TSKP, thought through the crime prevention through environmental design. With that, there's a natural access control. And it's limiting access to the school and grounds with actual and perceptual barriers to direct the movement of individuals. I don't know how you're going to put barriers in the middle of a park that's adjacent. I also am having a hard time finding the logic in With the Connecticut School Construction Standards and Guidelines, it is recommended that it is 10 acres for new school construction plus, I believe, 1 acre for 100 kids. You don't have that in that area. With a reconstruction of Hamner, I feel like you could put boundaries. It's kind of in a pocket set aside. With the, sorry, I said I wasn't prepared. With the swing school right in the middle, I don't know if there could be any barriers from the general public, and you would have the same problem. But back to the Connecticut School Construction Standards with the acreage, I have a hard time finding the logic to put the swing school at Stillman when you have the acreage at Keisha. And you don't have to go through the HDC if it's at Keisha. You don't have to go through all these obstacles to get it to where, to put it on Stillman. It is my understanding, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but we no longer are allowed to have events on the Broad Street Green because I think it was the police chief had said, it is hard to protect that area. Small area, lots of people, access from 4 sides. Stillman is the same makeup, a little bit bigger, but there's still access from 4 sides. So my concern is safety and how we can put that barrier between the general public with a park right next to a swing school. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicole. Yes, sir.
Hi, Matt Cooper, 120 Highland Street. I'll start off by saying that I've been a resident for 41 years. Both of my kids are in the elementary schools. They're age 6 and 9. And I, like many others tonight, am in full support of doing something with the schools and that the time is now. We've really run out of time. I'll start by just sharing where I stand, and I would share that I'll be voting yes for the referendum regardless of where the swing school is. Perfect cannot be the enemy of great in this instance, and I trust the process and the committee and what the town is doing. And I thank each one of you. All of you are subject to a lot of critique through all of this. I couldn't do what you do, but I do appreciate it because it's important for the residents. That being said, the location of the swing school is clearly proving to be the critical issue in this instance. It's actually kind of surprising to me. I thought that the 5-6 Academy would be the critical issue, but the location of the swing school is clearly proving to be that. And I think that the committee would agree that failure in a referendum would be failure for the committee, that we have to get something done. So if that's the goal, to get something done, I would encourage you, instead of making a decision, based on just the feedback from the consultants and what we hear in this room, which is clearly the vocal minority, to find a way to do a more formal poll or survey of where you're going to find support for this referendum in town. Maybe there are no good options and the referendum is bound to fail, but because we're so overdue for this project, I'd ask that you please put forth the option that has the highest likelihood to succeed. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Any other public comment? Tom.
Good evening. Tom Mazzarella, 600 Walcott Hill Road. I think it's fairly obvious that the majority of the residents support something being done with our schools. We've had, in recent times, one failure of a referendum. I believe it was because it was presented poorly. I don't think it was a good plan, and the numbers prove that out to be the case. In this situation, it's a numbers game. This is going to be a hard sell no matter which way you go because of costs. Your idea of breaking it into pieces is a good one. That's going to help the issue, but it's still going to be a staggering pill for most residents to swallow as far as paying for this project. I urge you to go to the path of least resistance. Here we have a resistance to a location in Old Weathersfield, whether it's for historic or aesthetics or whatever you want to call it. The opposition to having that school being built at Stillman is growing. People are becoming aware of what's going on. Not everybody attended all of your building committee meetings. They don't pay attention to Board of Ed meetings. They don't pay attention to town council meetings. But the word is starting to get out, and the feedback is that, no, I'm just going to vote no. That's a ridiculous idea. And so it comes down to be a numbers game. If you want this project to proceed, which I know all of you do, I think a lot of the residents will vote for it, you have to move it out of Old Weathersfield. And you can say, well, if you go to Keisha, there's going to be people up at Keisha, and they're going to come out by the hundreds and complain. Well, there's 1,100 structures in Old Weathersfield that are in the historic district. And if you have experienced the process of going through HDC because you want to change your windows or you want to change your gutters or do some minor renovation to your home, you have to go through this tedious process of getting approval to do that. The schools are going to have to do the same thing. It leaves it wide open to litigation if the residents don't like the way the outcome was. That's going to be more delays. The time to make a change is now. If you wait any longer, you're going to have invested so much time and effort and drawings and so forth. If you let it go to the town council to approve, to advance it to a referendum, it may get shot down there. Then where are you? Back to square one again. If the council approves it and it goes to referendum and you lose, where are you then? Back to square one. So now is the time to make a change, listen to the people, not just the people in this room. Go out in the community and ask people. You'll find out. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Any other public comment? Going once, going twice. You want to finish, sir? Yes.
If I can, sorry. We'll try to be faster this time. Steve Caprio again, 311 Garden Street. Thank you for letting me talk again. I'm going to try to be faster, skip a few and get through this. All right. Kaisia Farm has served no purpose to the town since its acquisition in 2018. It cost the town approximately $200,000 a year in debt service and has been left to grow as an abandoned field. You're never going to make everyone in town happy with the decision, but this committee has the opportunity to accomplish goals of multiple public interest groups by moving forward with Keisha Farm. With over 20 acres, the town can build a school and still establish an area for farming. What better way to educate our kids on the rich history of agriculture in Weathersfield and the importance of farming than to marry an elementary school and a farm together on a campus? The town would be able to include the establishment of this farmland in their site plan for the new school and likely include this cost in the budget for a swing school. Also, with regards to the wetlands, this should be changed from yellow to green for Kaisia in the report. The building is outside of the 150-foot wetlands buffer and will not be required to go through wetlands approval. The greatest impact to local residents exists with the construction of a new school on Stillman Field. This is not only the smallest site, but has the tightest setback from existing homes in the new school and is the only site that will materially impact the abutters on the site. Kaisia Farm, on the other hand, has an existing vegetative buffer that will remain, and the setback from abutters is more than double what the Stillman Field site is. In closing, by not addressing the process to gain approvals for the three sites, a disservice is being done to every member of this community. The single most important aspect of this proposed project is to offer up a site in the referendum vote with the greatest likelihood to receive local and state approvals and move forward with construction. In order to make submission to the state school construction program to request funding, something the town wants to do, the state is looking for a shovel-ready site. I would advise this committee to review all requirements for submission to the state and share them with the public. In most cases involving public funding from the state of Connecticut, they will need SHPO sign-off, a site plan, and very likely site plan approval to even make a submission. Stillman Field has the most risk, is the least likely to receive full state and local approvals, carries with it the longest lead time to make submission to the state school construction program, and should be removed from consideration as a swing school. As a landscape architect and developer, I'm disappointed at the recommendations that have been put forward thus far, and it is obvious that the criteria has been cherry-picked to shift focus away from Keisha Farms as the most viable option. I would like to remind TKSP and Downs Construction that they were hired as consultants for the town of Weathersfield to represent its residents and provide feedback and reporting that is non-biased and without political influence. I'd request that you, all along with the committee, consider this new information, make the required revisions to your report, and come together to present new findings with a revote by the committee. Thank you.
Any other public comment? Doug.
Good evening, folks. Doug Ovian, 56 Broad Street. A couple of things. The current plan for the swing school at Stillman is a 2-story building that does not accommodate the eventual education of pre-K students. So the building itself, as big as it will be when it arrives, will need to be bigger at some point in the future if we're going to accommodate pre-K students the same way that we are accommodating full-day kindergartners finally in our generation. In the next one, we're likely to need that space. The advantage of existing Hanmer is that it's large enough to accommodate pre-K students, and so that would be another reason to value Hanmer. As I indicated in a previous visit before you, in 1965, Weathersfield was contemplating building Hanmer right where the Stillman proposal is, and that was rejected by Weathersfield when they went to the trouble of purchasing the Diana parcel on the south side of Francis Street to put Hanmer off to the side and save what people think of as Standish Park. In 1999, the people of Weathersfield again chose to save a school building on that campus. That is what's called the Francis Stillman Building, which is now the headquarters of the Board of Education. The town sought to take it down, and there's a rich record of all the reasons why that didn't happen. And I would suggest that both the 1965 action and the 1999 action tell you a little bit of something about about why, when building projects take place in the district, the town advises that the proposal come before the Historic District Commission first, sometimes in an informal meeting, but with all of the commissioners, so that the public and all the commissioners can be apprised of what's coming and state their concerns. Today, I have no doubt that there'll be some beautiful renderings offered of a building that maybe would be quite fitting next to a Keisha barn, but the historical buildings that some folks have been sharing as renderings are in opposition to the mid-century building that we have that is part of a number of different educational structures in the district that the district is charged with valuing. And so as much effort as might go into the new school, the question is really, will the old school be considered for demolition? If you look at the overhead pictures of it, if you look at the fact that the building is on slabs, it has masonry, it has cathedral ceilings in some areas, it would seem to be a building that, despite its downside, is readily restorable. And as a result, it isn't like it's a barn that's falling down or a building that there are 100 other examples of in the district. This is the only other example of that kind of house, of that kind of school building. Other thing to keep in mind, Hanmer was built with sloping roofs and a one-story structure, when you look at its secluded pocket location, somehow it is surrounded by many homes that carry a similar pitch on their ranch or even their bungalow roofs. It fits in. There's room for solar panels on the south side, which wouldn't be visible from the other areas and could provide the town with some offset when it comes to electricity. Hanmer is a infrastructure that helps to support events that happen on the park. And I think that those of us who are thinking of the fact that Webb was going to be losing their elementary school, that it would
Doug,
be
you've hit
something...
5 minutes.
Sure.
Please summarize. Thank you.
It would be, I say, we don't want to force this on Webb. I'm sorry, we don't want to force this on Keisha, but it's a wonderful opportunity for Keisha to have, for New Weathersfield to have what Old Weathersfield has if you combine park and schooling. Thank you.
Thank you, Doug. Any other public comment? Going once? Going twice? All right. Honestly, I want to thank everybody for their input. It's really great. This is what makes our American democracy so unique. So regardless of what side of the position you're on, I really enjoyed your comments tonight. Thank you so much for sharing. And that moves us to the next agenda item, which I believe is approval of prior minutes. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Which one are we moving?
Oh, sorry. Is it, or are they separated? I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
there's 3.
All right. The new chair.
All right, so I'll make a motion to approve the January 6th meeting minutes.
Thank you, Amanda. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstain?
Abstain.
Okay, Rich, abstain.
All right, just 2. The next one is February 3rd.
All right, do I have a motion to approve the February 3rd minutes?
I move to approve the February 3rd meeting minutes.
Second.
Second.
Or any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Abstention? And the third one is?
No, it was just 2.
It was just 2, okay, thank
I
you.
misspoke, sorry.
Both passed, thank you. Well, don't pass, whatever. All right, next agenda item is, I believe, our first item of business, which is reviewing the SDMS chiller.
We have finished the bid process for that project. We have received 4 bids. Tomorrow, we are doing a scope review of the bid that we feel is most encompassing for the project. And so once that scope review occurs, we will make a recommendation to the town council for their approval of that project to begin. In the meantime, Silas Dean will not be used this summer because of the nature of the chiller and its age, and we don't want to have problems there. So we are hoping to get this passed at the next council meeting.
Any discussion? Yeah, go ahead, Rich.
Sally, can I, so you're gonna have a scope review with the successful or the apparent low bidder?
The apparent low bidder, the architects and the engineers who put the drawings together.
Okay. So given the fact that we're in March and you're gonna do a scope review, you'll get it out to contract, does the, maybe this is gonna be part of the discussion tomorrow, is the contractor going to let you know whether or not they can procure the equipment in time?
Well, we know it's definitely not going to be this summer, but we're hoping it won't be this summer, but we are hoping to nail down more of a schedule. Time for procurement has gotten less, which is great, but that is one of the questions to ask the vendor tomorrow.
Right, okay. So if it happens in the fall, is that going to have an impact on classes or?
It should not have an impact on classes because the air handler unit that is going to be installed over the gym right now, that air handler unit has not been in operation for a number of years. So, and the chiller is only used during the summer months. So we should be good.
Any other committee comments? No? All All right, we'll move on to our next agenda item, which is the discussion with TSKP consultants on their work to date and next steps. Is that Michael?
Yeah, I think Michael wants me to kick it off with,
All right.
with a quick schedule update.
After that public
Then it's
I'll let him go.
Yeah.
Michael, you want to just go to the...
Right.
All right, so I'll kick off our report. So we're going to talk a little bit about schedule. We've taken a little bit of a deeper dive into the schedule. So we'll give you an update on the schedule, and then Michael's going to take the phasing sequence, give everybody an update on that, and also the phasing updates. So with that, we can get right into the schedule. There we go. Perfect. So we've done some further development with the schedule. We met with Michael Emmett last week. We've got two main focuses on our schedule that we'd like to highlight, and that's the grant application submission and then the overall process for the referendum. We also met with the bond council in the last 2 weeks to organize the necessary steps to get to a referendum. As part of the grant application, there's a number of resolutions that are required to fulfill the grant application. We have a complete and concise grant application checklist that we presented to Michael Emmett, and we plan to meet with him fairly regularly in an effort to get to that all-important June 30th deadline. And we're going to outline the resolutions that need to come before BOE and the town council between April and May. The next slide, and in addition to that, I also passed out a little more detailed and granular schedule that will get us to the June 30th, and what we are anticipating is a town referendum on September 23rd. We're also getting ready to do our cost modeling. So within the next 3 to 4 weeks, we're going to be doing and looking hard at the cost modeling for the swing school location, the Webb 5th, 6th Academy, and Charles Wright, with an anticipation of coming back to this committee on April 14th for a complete presentation of the overall schedule, the cost for the first referendum, and then another review of the phasing. Additionally, we'll bring that presentation to the Board of Ed and the Town Council in the next 2 weeks. And the key referendum dates that we're looking to achieve would be to introduce the bond ordinance on Monday, May 19th, with a public hearing scheduled for Monday, June 16th. Looking forward to a September 23rd first referendum for the first 3 school building projects, keeping in mind that our grant application will be submitted for only the first school renovation or school project for the June 30th deadline.
Clarify that for me, Tom. So say that last part again.
So the referendum will be for the first 3 projects, but the grant application will only be for the first project. And then subsequently after that, every year you would submit another grant application looking forward to that June 30th deadline. And then everything would fall in line right after that. And Michael, if you go to the next slide, there is the detail there. You'll see the hard bold line is really kind of where we are, March 10th. So we've mapped out all of the appropriate meetings, when we need the resolutions, when we need the approvals. Next slide, Michael. And then there's kind of the next steps getting us to the June 16th meeting. Public hearing, the start of the non-advocacy period, We would follow that right up with a special meeting on June 23rd to approve the minutes of that referendum question. And that would ultimately be the very last item we need to upload to the portal for your grant application. So we'd be right in time to submit on the June 30th deadline. Ideally, 1 week, we'd be done 1 week prior to, ready for that submission. Any other?
Yeah, question, if you can go back one slide, Michael, if you could. I notice you have Board of Education presentation after the building committee meeting. Is that by design? So April 14th, building committee, you had on the prior page as the date, right? But Board of Ed has to also,
Yeah.
as a Board of Ed member, also has to see it, right?
I think we were a little bit ambitious with that first BOE meeting. So I think what we want to do is we want to come to this committee meeting on the 14th. After we prepared this, I think we slid the dates a little bit. So the 14th, we would come back to this committee. Then we would follow the very next BOE meeting and then follow that up with town council.
Perfect.
We're still within the April-May timeframe, and it still works with all of the requirements that we need to meet.
Thank you for that clarification. Yep, thank
Yeah,
you.
we'll make the adjustment on the one that we handed out.
Can you just confirm that this schedule will be on the website? I know website updates are a different item, but just, I see some people taking pictures, and I just want to make sure that we are going to put this on our website as well.
Yes, and we're also going to update the graphic in more of a bar chart form from the current one that we already have up there. So
Great.
we will make this one available, and we'll also update the graphic.
Thank you.
No public comments or questions, please. Thank you. Any other committee comments on schedule?
I have one more question. The potential non-advocacy period starting on June 17th, is that just because it's coinciding with the public hearing, or?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah, and we were advised right after the hearing is when it starts.
okay.
All right, I'm going to speak from here. So the clicker works, and, this is more like home base for me in Weathersfield anyhow. So, talking about phase sequence. So, since our last meeting last month with you all, we have spent more time not only working with your newly appointed bond counsel, but also consulting with town staff and Weathersfield Public Schools. So we have further developed this phase sequence that we had reviewed with you before. I will point out that, for instance, phase 1, which is the swing school site, will necessarily need to include the preschool program. In other words, we can't move it in phase 2 when we go into web. We need to go ahead and build a new permanent home for that. And that needs to be in a consolidated spot rather than a distributed preschool. Distributed preschool at this time does not work with the educational program or how the staffing currently shares resources in order to keep that program as affordable as possible. Additionally, we started thinking harder about staging the referendums. So here you will see we're essentially putting the whole thing, splitting it in the middle between all of the phases. So phase 1 will be the swing school. Phase 2 will be the renovation of Webb. And then phase 3 will be a renovation of Charles Wright. That will be the first referendum, and we're currently working on the pricing documents to really try to hone in on a good hard cost estimate for that first referendum. From there, we'll have very good data to build the remaining portions of the phases. In other words, the renovation of Emerson Williams will essentially mirror very closely the renovation of Charles Wright. The areas of disturbances are about the same. We will test fit the areas of demolition versus the areas of renovation. And then lastly, as we discussed in the previous building committee meeting, a new high crest, a new K through 4 high crest will essentially, from a construction standpoint, once we isolate this site, be very much like the construction of the swing school without the addition of the pre-K. So we'll have a good way to model the future costs of the project, but we'll likely present ranges for those future costs. We'll be in much better position as we get some good successes under our belt in phases 1 through 3, and we get closer to that second referendum date where we can reset our cost models, make sure that the markets are acting the way that we anticipate them to do. This mirrors very closely what towns like South Windsor and Manchester did, where there was a pretty good idea of the total cost, but not necessarily a final sticker MSRP on the entire project. It's very rare that you can execute a multi-phase 10-year project and land it exactly on the dollar. We've discussed this in the past. Now, I'm just going to give you some brief updates on each of these first 3 phases, which has really been the area of focus. First of all, on the swing school Stillman site, we've achieved several important milestones. We've completed the phase 1 environmental assessment of the Stillman site. I'm using the term phase 1 in 2 different ways. Stillman site is phase 1 of this program, but a phase 1 environmental assessment is a term of art in our industry, and it is the first step to assess the viability of the site. Keisha Farms has a phase 1 that was done as part of the town's due diligence before the purchase of that parcel, and now we've completed the phase 1 for the Stillman site. It has identified no areas of concern. In other words, there isn't an obvious outlier of necessary deed restrictions, environmental concerns, or archaeological or environmental assets. Doesn't mean they're not there. Doesn't mean you're not going to find it in any of your 5 schools, for that matter. Additionally, we've returned to the educational specifications for this swing school. You'll recall that we essentially built this on the previous referendum's educational specifications, but having learned quite a bit and presenting fundamentally a new plan, we have to go back and tweak that educational specifications. It was in that work where we really understood the efficacy of introducing the pre-K component to this so that it works more cohesively with the comprehensive plan. We've returned to Weathersfield professional staff to take all of their comments about this as the swing school site. That includes your fire marshal, your police department, your park and recs department, your town manager, and your town planner. That was when conducting a session with HDC becomes critically important. Unlike a typical building project, when we go before HDC, we will not have a building to show them or a site plan to show them, right? And that is typically how the HDC is built. However, any comprehensive plan for the 5 elementary schools needs to deal with the existing Hamner School in some way, shape, or form. In this instance, we're tearing the whole thing down. At some point in time, if you don't tear it down, you're going to have to do something to Hamner. So we need to understand HDC's expectations on how to engage with Hamner and how to engage with the Stillman parcel. So it's our hope that very shortly we can schedule more of an informational session. It'll be an atypical session, but it'll be a public session before that committee to understand better their approach to both the Stillman and the Hamner site as part of the comprehensive plan.
Are we going to know when that meeting is?
You and I will both know about that meeting when we know about that meeting.
Making sure.
Okay. Further updates as events warrant. In the meantime, because of those questions about the swing school, we've put a pause on really developing those plans other than the EdSpec, the space program in and of itself. We have taken this opportunity to do a more focused development on phase 2, which is web, where we've honed in on how the site might be redeveloped. You can see here from the web parcel, it's an overall reduction in paving around the website. For this project, the parking count is improved slightly because of the anticipated increase in enrollment. But more importantly, we've taken a complete EdSpec with Weathersfield Public School faculty's input and try to reassign it throughout web. This drawing is based on really a partial demolition of the top wing and an extension of a 2-story portion in order to get the classroom count in. But you can see that across really 2 of those wings, we're able to more or less repartition the existing space and renovate it as new and return it to a full middle school program. So we'll get more input from Weathersfield Public School on this layout, how it works, how it doesn't work, how some of these adjacencies can be shook out. But really what's developing here is a pretty robust cost model about total areas of buildings that will be, of this building that will be completely demolished, total areas of this building that will be partially demolished and therefore renovated, and then total square footage of new building that needs to be constructed to make this building whole. This will create a very robust and informative cost model to base phase 2 on. And similarly, we were able to look into Charles Wright. This is a revised site plan for Charles Wright, where you can see we're taking the existing gymnasium and cafeteria that sits so close to Knott Street, sorry, it's been a while, and move that towards the back of the site. This will allow for much deeper bus and car loops to pull that traffic off of Knott Street. We are not looking at a connecting road or emergency access by acquiring another parcel. We are looking at potentially shrinking that lacrosse field down to more like a U12 soccer field as a consequence of this project. And then, like we did on Webb, this is a developed allocation of what a K through 4 program would look like at Charles Wright, reconfigured with 3 classrooms per grade. No pre-K as part of this. So this is K4, new gym, new cafeteria towards the rear. Any thoughts or discussions on what we presented here?
Michael, as part of the web renovation, that also included the renovation of the auditorium, right? I failed to.
Full renovation of the auditorium. Your auditorium is has more seats than what OGA currently considers reimbursable, but I think we can get a space standard exception on that. Typically, for middle schools and high schools, they'll allow seating capacity for half the population. You're a little more than that with the existing seating arrangement. But while it also includes an expansion of the cafeteria, that's why it now bulges into the courtyard a little bit. We just need more capacity, more seating capacity in order to keep the lunch waves down to 3. I'm trying to think of any of the other big changes we made. It's really taking down the glazed ramps and extending the 2-story classroom wing across that bridge. That allows administration to swing into that space, so it's right off of the bus loop, good eyes on the street as kids come and go from the site, and gets your classroom count up, and gets the administration out of its current position, which is an inaccessible part of the school. You need your administration to where people can get to them. I guess the last thing, if I could indulge in a little bit of commentary. I really enjoy working in Wethersfield. I keep telling my wife that when we downsize, we should come here. But I just want to be clear. I don't know what happened in the last referendum. I think this committee's been pretty committed to a candid and frank discussion about all of our options. And like it or not, I think you'll find that in presenting that, Downs and TSKP has certainly responded to that, but even the committee has responded to that. And in the record, I think you'll find us saying something positive just about everything we've presented, because we've all been vested in only presenting options that are doable. We're not trying to present false choices. So we've been pretty candid about the positive features of a maintain-only solution. Whether that's a good idea or not, we've told you what the value of that is. And along the way, we've told you the value of the northern Highcrest site, the Keisha site, and the Stillman site. We've told you the downsides of each of those. So it's possible to cherry pick positive and negative comments of each. But I think if you look at the minutes of the February 3rd meeting, we did a level set of everything we said about the swing school site. We gave you a color-coded score chart, and you all commented on it. And you voted 5-2 or 4-3, I can't remember, but you voted on it. The vote was close, but that's where we landed. So I just wanted to explain that we have all endeavored to show you only doable solutions. Whether they represent the best value for the town, we've given you our opinion and let you make the decision. And I thank you for participating in that process up to now.
Any committee members, any other discussion? Go ahead, Doug.
Just about the Hamner site, and that you mentioned the agency and having that conversation, sort of holding things where they are while we meet with them to understand their perspective on things. One of the things that I certainly understand, and please correct me if I'm wrong, is that Hamner as it is now is, I think it was said, the second largest elementary school.
It's the largest.
Oh, it's the largest?
Yeah.
By square footage.
By square footage, not by classroom count. That's its perhaps Achilles heel, but yeah.
And so, and you've said it's sort of painted in that site, and it's something I'm
poured in like paint.
Poured in like paint. Here I am misquoted. I'm glad you can correct me in real time.
I want to be quoted correctly.
I know it well. I walk there every day. I live in Old Wethersfield. But one of the things I certainly took from the plan that was presented where we are now with the 5th, 6th grade academy is all of the elementary schools are getting smaller. And so, in terms of population, but also that when we're talking about the state paying for the work, the new Hamner school that would be built on Stillman and the Stillman site as it's proposed would be much smaller than what's at Hamner now. But if Hamner were to be remodeled, it would also have to shrink. It would be very difficult, because I've heard quite a few people say today that we want to keep it as it is, it's a fixture. And it was sort of my understanding that that's not really a realistic possibility when we're considering the state paying for the process, because the whole site would have to shrink dramatically, so it couldn't look like it does now. It's certainly possible, and you made it clear, to have a new school there, but could we have a remodeled school that looks like it does now if the state is paying for it with a smaller population?
Okay, so that's a lot.
It's a lot.
Yeah, okay.
And forgive me, one of the things I like about Hamner is that the classes the class sizes are very large. Like the actual physical square, feet, not the number of students. I don't like that, but the actual sizes of the classes are very large. I understood that, the class sizes, the size, each class will be smaller, the whole building would be smaller. And so is it possible to, as we envision having 4 K to 4 schools and 1 5-6 academy, to have a school that looks as it does there if it's not this swing school?
Okay, all right. So let's see here. Let's try to chunk this. One of the overarching goal assignments from this building committee was to try to establish equanimity across each of the schools. But let's just talk about class size for a little bit. So the Hamner population, the Hamner school is large, the classrooms are large, the population is smaller. The classrooms per grade are currently small for the anticipated configuration, but we can work through that. I've also said in the past that Hamner is more ladder-like, meaning similar to what we just did with the Webb School, which was to keep the double-loaded corridor, but knock down all of the demising walls between the classrooms on either side and reproportion them so that the classrooms are right-sized for the program. There potentially is the opportunity to do that with Hamner. Part of reaching out to the HDC is better understanding their expectations with Hamner. We've heard a lot of people saying, leave every brick intact. Certainly, as part of a comprehensive program to bring Hamner up to snuff with what we're contemplating with the other 4 elementary school sites, you would want to upgrade the envelope, upgrade the roof, upgrade the windows, and what does that mean? But to your point, it is an opportunity to shrink the footprint of Hamner so it is no longer poured in like paint. Give it a little more breathing room to the residential neighbors. Give a little more green space if it was going to remain. I feel strongly that you're going to have to change the front of Hamner just to give it a legitimate sally port and secure entry. Right now, visitors dump right into that main corridor just off the cafeteria. That is not up to snuff with contemporary, secure school construction. So Hamner represents those challenges as an existing school. And if we were going to if HDC said it is a significant contributor to the overall district and you can't tear it down, we would want to revisit some of our recommendations to you and understand what that meant. So that's how I'll tell you that HDC is an important component in this. SHPO 2 is an important component, but less so. I think HDC is going to take the lead on this, and then we can move from there. So there you go.
Question. So say we go before the Historic District Commission and it does not go as swimmingly as the majority of this board hopes, are we still going to be on target for June 30th? Do we have a backup plan?
Well, we're developing a plan for the swing school that could be adopted to any of the 3 sites. I'll put it that way. Fundamentally, you'll remember that Keisha stacks differently than Highcrest North and Stillman, right? It's a lower level walkout basement scheme than a 2-story classroom scheme. That's okay.
So you think we'll still be on target, like say for example?
I don't see how we have a choice. I mean, we are clear-eyed and candid about all of this. Look.
I'm only concerned because the referendum was supposed to be at the end of May, June, and then it was moved to September. So I just want to make sure if September is a real actual target, or are we going to be moving it to November, so
Well, I guess I'll be even more candid. The June 30th grant application deadline is something that's statewide.
Yeah.
And there's no way to move that. And phase 1 of this comprehensive plan is the swing school plan. So we need a very good site assessment and cost estimate for phase 1 by June 30th. And I believe that we can hit that target.
Then for the checklist, can we have that on our website so that everybody can see what needs to happen?
For the grant checklist?
The grant application?
Yeah.
But the checklist is the actual application. We've just populated the application.
So there's no you need to make sure that this is the whatever form you need to fill. I know it's like a huge thing. I went on the.
Well, it's not super huge. I mean, it's totally manageable.
Yeah,
lesser towns do it every year.
Or like a link so that people can go on and go. And
Look,
what's entailed.
In the spirit of transparency, I don't see why we wouldn't post it. I'm just saying it's incredibly wonky, but that's great. I mean,
we could.
Welcome to Weathers. You might really.
Yeah, let's go.
We could share it with this committee, and then you guys can determine if you want it posted or not.
A lot of the application is the same regardless of the swing school site.
No, I just think that people would want to know what actually entails doing this, so that everybody knows what the process is, what we're looking at, because what forms you're filling out to get approved for June 30th is different than, the actual site plans and what things are going to look like. It's basically what you've gone through safety procedures and, there's certain requirements and stuff. Certain forms that the superintendent has to fill out, things like that.
Yes, yes, some of that seems to be later on in the process, but posting the checklist would be a good way to keep us all on the same page.
Michael, have you scheduled that HDC meeting yet? It hasn't been scheduled, right?
I'm not a scheduler.
That's what I was going to say, yeah, so.
It is, in defense of everybody here, it's taken us a while to understand. The last referendum, for instance, which ostensibly was about Hamner, did not go in front of the HDC, never came up. That's okay. Because, and this is commentary, not fact, because the HDC is built to review site plan and building applications. That is not what anyone is contemplating presenting before this referendum. It just isn't done that way. This is a comprehensive plan. You haven't hired an architect to design the school at Hamner, unfortunately. So it's a different type of approach to HDC. It's not just us bringing in a site plan and a elevation and saying, don't you love it?
I myself have been in front of them a dozen times, so I get it.
But you understand, we are a square peg heading into a round hole.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. understood. Yeah, I mean, Sally, I mean, you just let me know if we need to escalate that, because we need to stay on track, right? We've already delayed the referendum once. September is the date, so let's keep marching.
And just to clarify, although this meeting really is just to get the tenor of the HDC for the potential work that could be done over there, you all will be there with us, and you will be able to explain to them that if we were to renovate as new the current Hanmer building, there would still be potential changes to the footprint and the overall look of the school.
Yeah, we can outline that. I guess to further answer your question, if we had to live with Hamner and we couldn't touch a brick, in order to maintain reimbursement with the state, we would have to file a pretty sophisticated space waiver to explain to them why we are holding on to 57,000 square feet for a K-4 school of that population. And we would rely heavily on the arm of the HDC's judgment as to why we were doing that, for instance. Doesn't mean we would carry the day with grants, but that's also could be recalibrated. I mean, alternatively, in phase 4 or 5 of this project, the town could elect to forego the equanimity of this and just put more kids in every classroom of Hamner than they have in any other school in the district. You know, you could build it to suit and adjust the demographics accordingly. So you're not I just want to be careful here.
Let's see what the HTC has to say about it all first.
It's important to take their temperature.
Yes, you're correct.
But it is by no means declarative or definitive.
Right.
But a good sounding of the HDC is required regardless of what happens.
Sure. Yeah, I like that.
Before referendum.
Yep.
Okay. All right. That's really what I meant to say about all of that.
Any other discussion?
Can I just be clear when we're meeting next? I just want to...
That's next on the agenda.
Oh, perfect. Sorry.
Any other discussion?
Cart before the horse.
Cart before the horse. That's the term of the day. No other discussion. Thank you, Michael, Tom. Thank you.
I'm just going to stay up here because of the clicker proximity.
Update to the website next. I'm sorry. Yeah. Okay, sorry. That's right. Our next agenda item is update to the website.
The very last slide, Michael, I think.
The very last slide.
Yeah.
Oh, you're going to go through all the rogues gallery of... Oh, those were good times back then. Okay. All right.
So we've made a couple of updates to the website. So we added a link to the board and the commission meetings, which go to the calendar, and there's also a YouTube video on how to search for the meeting minutes, and to download the agendas and find the minutes and the proposed schedule. All of our presentations are currently uploaded and to date, with the exception of tonight's. So we'll upload tonight's. There is the frequently asked questions section. That is currently up to date as of February 26th. There have been a handful of questions, I think 6 or 7 new questions since we posted last. So we've shared those questions, and once we get answers, we will post those as soon as possible. What else is up there on the website? I think that's about it. Any questions on how the website's going?
Is there a lot of traffic on the website? Is there?
Yes. Yeah, quite a bit.
Mostly people posting questions, best I can tell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, so we'll keep maintaining the website. We'll keep you up to date on questions as they come up. We'll turn them around. We'll put the schedule up on the website. We'll update the graphic of the schedule. We'll share our application checklist. If you want that posted, we'll organize that as well.
Any discussion on the website? Thank you, gentlemen, as always. And I think now we can finally move on to next meetings. This is the part where everybody looks at their calendar and says yes or no. So April 14th would be our next meeting, and that one, I believe, is when we are going to get another presentation.
Yeah.
So that's an important one. How are we all looking on that?
March 24 here.
Sorry.
They added in a special.
Yeah, that's not on the,
Are we no longer meeting twice a month? I thought we decided to do that.
Question.
Here, March 24.
I think we had agreed to once a month and then adding more special meetings if we needed them. I know initially we were meeting twice a month and then we kind of fell off into once a month. And then if we needed them, we would schedule more. So I do see that the schedule presented in the printout from TSKP and Downs tonight does have a special meeting for March 24th.
So we do need to schedule that one then.
Yeah.
Is everybody good with that date?
Yeah, we populated every special meeting just so that we knew when they were coming up, but we don't have to schedule them if we don't need them. We just wanted
Okay,
to
all
make
right.
sure we all had them on our calendars.
All right, so I guess that's the first question is, do we need the March 24th special meeting?
I guess I would recommend holding it until a week out, and then we can cancel it. But for instance, if we
I think those are the regular.
are able to do an HDC sounding.
Sure, right.
Yeah, we might
Okay,
wanna-
It would be
fair
a
point.
great way to
Yeah.
update you on our progress. But if that hasn't occurred yet, then maybe we'll hold off until the 14th. But let's
Okay.
hold on
let's
to it
keep it on the
until
schedule.
like
Yep.
a week ahead of time.
Okay. And just for the public certification, those agendas are posted on the town website and they will be noticed. The location of the meeting will be noticed.
just gonna say
They will
that.
be public.
Yeah, we are up in the air on this room versus other rooms.
Yeah.
We're still looking for that confirmation of other space, just to be fair.
I also want to, someone mentioned this, and I just want to make sure I noted that our regular meeting in April is the April vacation week.
Yeah,
And
I was,
I know that you don't have something particular, it's more important, the BOE and town council, but maybe we should get ahead of that about what
I was just going to say, as chair, I am in Orlando that day, so that would not work. So maybe we can figure out a date to have that. I will be available for my Board of Ed meeting, which is good, but on the 8th, but the 14th, I am not around. It doesn't mean if I'm the only one, we can't, Lauren can certainly run the meeting.
Yeah, but if we're all ready
But
to
it's a-
you and Kate, and this is a really important meeting, I think.
I'm around.
Oh, okay.
I just wanted to call it out because a woman called it
Yeah.
out.
So we would have to present our
Good. I think we just leave it on there for now.
Leave it for now, and then we'll figure,
Let's all just kind of
maybe on
check our
the, on the
calendars and
24th
see if we
meeting,
can-
if we have it,
Yeah.
we'll schedule
Okay.
it. Yeah. Do we want to go through all the other dates?
So what date are we're presenting to the Board of Ed?
April 8th, that's our first April meeting.
April 8th.
That's correct, right?
So
Or is it, or we were going to, wait a minute, it's going to be later, right? Because
So if we're going to
Sorry,
move, if
sorry,
we're
Nick.
going to move the April 14th building
Yeah.
committee, we would like to present our cost model and the estimate for the first referendum prior to going to the Board of Ed. We want to,
Right, okay.
make the presentation to
Us
this.
first and then
Yep.
be.
Yes.
So the next one would be
So
April
I think,
22nd.
yeah, so I think our next building committee meeting, we need to decide if we're going to move our cost model presentation up or we're going to push it a week.
The 7 PM meeting on the 14th,
Move it up.
I think I actually will be back. Let me verify that and double check my flight times, but I think I should be okay. So let's leave the 14th.
Maybe leaving the 14th.
That would be the 24th.
Yeah, so the April 8th is not actually. Yeah, correct.
So in May, I'm not available either. I will be in Orlando as well.
Can we all meet, let's all meet in Orlando.
Yeah, she's a cheerleading championship in Orlando. So. Struggle, sorry.
Oh, we're not going to. So are we going to go through the May and, or let's just,
I think, yeah, let's just keep
we'll
the
call
next
them,
couple.
we'll call
and
them on
then,
there.
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll
All
just
right.
kind of.
Any other discussion on calendar? Committee members? No? Any? We're good? Amanda, good? Okay. Okay, so next agenda item is, I believe, other business?
Other business.
Correct? Does anybody have any other business? No. I do have one item as new appointed chair. One of the things that I really want to do is make sure the building committee, Board of Ed, Town Council are all aligned on communications. So one of the things, so as a Board of Ed member, we've been receiving a lot of questions on, separate from here, and it's important to make sure that we're concise. We have a committee on the Board of Ed that is a subcommittee for communications led by Marjorie Cowan Carson, but there is an input from us that we need there as well as the Town Council. So I'm trying to figure out how we do that at the building committee level to have a subcommittee for communications. I'm not prepared to announce that today, but I'm just letting the committee know that I'm interested in doing something like that, where someone could meet in a subcommittee fashion and communicate with both of those entities to make sure information is getting out in the proper manner. So more to come on that. I will certainly be leading that charge. Any questions on that? Good. All right. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you all for coming tonight.